Hi, this is János, it's Real World Audio, and I'm answering Martin's question about tonearm building, and basically he's asking like how to find out how exactly should be your counterweight, and I am going to show you my method, how you can do it very easily, because for example, one thing what I'm doing and what I've done is just use like a piece of dense wood, something like ebony or something really dense like hard wood, and that is very heavy, and have a block of that wood and use it as a counterweight. But then how do you calculate the exact weight of your counterweight? Now I just have a ferrite magnet in my hand. I don't have a block of wood lying around at the moment, so this is a placeholder for a block of wood. And the hard way would be just to have your wooden arm ready, and you know, just keep on shaving that block of wood, which is almost impossible. So if you ever cut ebony, then, or any of those hardwoods which are so dense and heavy, then you know that it's like cutting metal, and it's that bad on the blades that you are using, as if you were cutting metal, almost that bad. And it won't be easy to do that, or to figure out how much exactly to cut off from your block. It's really a nightmarish solution. So I'm going to show you what I was using with my wooden counterweights, how to calculate what the weight should be. So what I did was just mechanical method of finding out the weight. So basically imagine that this is my wooden tonearm, the base of it, I mean the arm of the arm, not the base, just the basis of it. And then just mount here at the end that amount of weight as your cartridge would weigh. Put here, maybe it's like 10 grams or whatever your cartridge weighs, put on that weight. And also put that weight in it, which is your tracking force. So if it's like a 1.8 grams tracking force cartridge, add the weight of your cartridge plus that 1.8 gram tracking force, whatever you want to make it balanced. Basically that's added to an end, and to the other end attach your weight. So when you attach the counterweight, it should be always under the plane of the arm, not here, not above, nothing, just under, because that will make it stable. The more you elevate the counterweight, the more unstable it becomes. But now, just for the simplicity's sake, I don't have 3 arms. I'm going to put it here because just for the purposes, so you see how the thing balances. And what I do is just attach the weight, so it would look something like this, to the end of your arm, and attach that weight here, that is the weight of the cartridge plus the tracking force. And here find out what the position should be for the suspension to make it level. And when it's level, then basically that's when your arm has that tracking force and it is operational. So that's when it should be level. And then you can use a pencil for that purpose, and when you find that position, then just mark it with your pencil. And now that you have marked it and you know that, okay, it doesn't want to focus there, it's right there, I marked it. So that's where you will create the base of the arm. So that's where the center of the base will be. And then you have your weight done at the arm. And if you need like micro adjustments, then you can add a tiny bit, maybe tiny pieces of wood, add to the counterweight, so to make it heavier. Or if you want to make this heavier, you can add like tiny pieces of wood along the arm. What I do is I just put like a tiny piece of weight somewhere, and if I need to adjust the tracking force, I just move that weight here or there. If I want to make it lighter, keep on moving it towards this end, and if I want to make it heavier, then move it towards here. So that's how you can like modify like a gram or so in the totality. But this is the easy method how you can just, when you have a block of ebony, that's the block of ebony you have, and you don't want to keep on shaving it ad libitum, just attach it the way you attach it to the arm, and then just find the fulcrum, find the position when it is level with the cartridge and the tracking force attached to it, and that's it. I think that's my method that I'm using. It's really old school. Of course, if someone wants to be so scientific that you want like exact ratio of the length of the arm before the fulcrum and after the fulcrum, you can go by that as well. But it will take a long while to figure it out, and it might not be any better sounding. And what I can say about that is just experiment with it and share your experiences. For me, this very simple method has worked fabulously. I haven't had a single arm that I didn't like that I built this way. Maybe it just tells more about me than about the arms. Anyway, there's one more question about anti-skating, and what I noticed that when you have these ultra long arms, they don't care at all about anti-skating, and I never use any devices to set it up. So when I'm using my the tonearm wire, the only thing you need to be aware of is to have them exit your arm where your fulcrum is, where the base is at that point, as close to that point as possible, so that as the arm turns around, then the bending of the wires has the least impact on the arm turning. So, and what I'm doing is I'm having one channel exit on one side, like if we are here, so two wires exit here, like the left channel exits here, and the right channel exits on the other side of the base. So basically, when you are moving the arm, the wires on the both sides, it has an equal push as the other side have a pull. So those forces that the wires impact on the turning of the arm are net zero. And especially with these long arms, I never ever had skipping problem with it. So anti-skating is an entire non-issue. You don't have to do anything beyond that except the wires leaving at the base and leaving on either side of the base. That's it, and nothing needs to be done, and you don't even have to worry about anti-skating or skipping or anything. The only way it can skip if the record doesn't have any grooves. I mean, even if I don't know. I don't want to speculate how it cannot skip because I haven't experienced it having problem with tracking. It's a non-issue. These long arms track like crazy, like nothing I've seen before. And actually they can track to such a degree that they do track such broken warp records that I have to watch it because I wasn't watching it. I just, I have a bunch of second, third, fourth, fifth, who knows how many hand records, and often I just put them on and just listen to it. I'm not even watching the turntable playing, I just leave the arm down, and then I just go on about the room and I listen to it in the background. Do I want to keep this record? If not, okay, that goes out. And I'm not even looking at it, what's going on. And sometimes I look at it and sometimes, a couple of times my eyes have gone like this wide because there are such warps that I see the arm doing this movement. I'm exaggerating, but it kind of like looks like this, like it's playing ploop, 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 that exaggerated crazy moves, and nothing in the sound suggests that the record is so badly warped or said there's some crazy warp like that in the record, and these arms play even those things so bad. The only tracking problem my long arms had was when the warp is so big that and so sudden that actually the warp knocks it off, and the warp is bigger than the distance between your stylus tip and the cartridge body. So when it's not the stylus making the contact with the record, but it's your cartridge body making the contact, but even then it won't skip. It will just hear and then it continues in the same groove where it was before. Just, there's that massive jump and that extreme pressure on the cartridge that will ruin your cantilever. And actually that's how my old Audio-Technica cartridge died, after me playing a bunch of records like that and me not even looking at them, and and I was like, oh, okay, fine, it keeps playing like that, whatever, and until if it's as big that it lifts up the body and I can't hear music for a split second, then okay, I never kept those records, just tossed it as a frisbee. But if it's good enough that even there's a big jump, I used to keep them. But I noticed that cartridge, after playing like a couple hundred records like that, then the cantilever suddenly once just gave up the ghost, and it went pluk, and it was that. And then I decided, okay, I'm done with that, even though these arms can track anything, but it will kill your cartridge if there are giant warps in it. I think that was the bonus thing of this response, because Martin wasn't asking about that warp bits and can you play warp records? Yes, you can, but actually what I did to avoid that scenario is that I have two arms on the table, and normally I have one with a stereo cartridge and the other with a mono cartridge, but also on the, now how I gravitated to is that on the long arm I have the Benz cartridge, which is my really favorite cartridge, and I don't want to wear it out, so I only play those records which are really proper, flat, and I don't want to kill the stylus and the cantilever, and I don't use such records on it that I have never listened to. I only use my those ones that I have cleaned and are nice and good quality, so that which won't wear it out. And on the other arm I have my Audio-Technica ATF7 cartridge, which is a fantastic cartridge, but it's a very affordable cartridge, and that's what I use to go through a bunch of my collection which I have collected but haven't listened to yet. And I don't have that much time to, like just clean the records first and listen to them, because I don't have enough times in a day to clean them all. What I do is that when I'm in that mood to listen to new records, that happens when I have like a vacation day from work, and I don't have anything like fixing cars or home remodeling going on, and preferably Nelly is on a trip somewhere, so I have the house by myself, don't have anything else to do. In those days, what I do is, like on the weekends, basically from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. I'm playing records non-stop, and I go through maybe like 50 records or more, like maybe 100 records through a day, and those like maybe 10 records that I want to keep, maybe there's just 2, maybe there's 80 that I want to keep, that I like the music, that is in good shape. Then I clean those and I feed them through my ultrasonic record cleaner, and the rest ones I say goodbye to them and donate them to Goodwill, or I give it to my friends, and sometimes, like hopefully when I have these good sessions, that when I get time to listen to records, and then I just like boxes and boxes, like poor Terry, sometimes he like picks them up like 400 records at a time. And now he doesn't have any more place to put them, like but anyway, he says, no, don't give it to Goodwill, give it to me first. And then, anyway, I digress. So that's about the tone arms and cartridges. So I really hope that that was useful. And there was one more question from Martin that he asked, that he got a loader PM6 driver, and will it work in void pipes? Yes, it will work very well. And actually the loader drivers were created for void pipes. So Paul Voigt, he was also the father, the creator of the loader drivers. He designed the technology. So Peter Lauder was the owner. He gave the money, the funds for it, and Paul Voigt was the brains behind it, who designed the drivers, and he designed these loader drivers specifically for the void pipes. And the loader PM6, yes, I have my friend and he tried it in his void pipes, and they work really well. So it can be really recommended. So yes, I do recommend to build a pair of void pipes for them and try them in the pipes. And I'm glad my videos have been helpful, and enjoy your fun audio adventures. They will bring a lot of happiness and fun. Have an awesome day. Bye team, bye bye.